I don't know. Anyways, we got Scott Cornell from Travelers on now. Scott, thank you so much for coming back to the show. I started with a news story that was probably something for your heart, but today we're going to get into talking a little bit about risk profiles and everything. But before we get there, thanks for coming back on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me back. It's nice. We got a rotation. Obviously you talk to different people here and there, but here at Travelers for different topics. But it's always good to be on. I enjoy it. So thanks for having me.
Now, today we're going to talk about risk profiles. When people talk about risk profiles, what are we talking about?
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about today. So I may actually be referring to some notes on this one. But
Sure.
so your risk profile is sort of like your credit score, right? There's no actual score, but like lenders look at your credit score and they decide, are you a good risk for a loan? The insurance industry is going to take a look at you and decide, are you a good risk? Are you an average risk? Or are you, a worse risk? So just like you want to try and avoid having a bad credit score, you're going to want to try and have a good risk score or a good risk profile more so, because there's really no score, but it's more of a, how do you look as a risk? So you want to make sure that you look good.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So now that you've kind of sort of set and defined what it is, let's get into it. Hit it, Scott.
Yeah, so a few things are really going to come into play for that when it comes to the transportation industry. What types of loads are you hauling or warehousing them? What do your contracts look like? And what are you doing to mitigate all those risks? So if we start with the commodities, we're in one of the toughest transportation economies. You talk about this all the time, but we're in one of the toughest transportation economies that we've seen in years. And it continues to be challenging. So in that kind of an economy, are you taking on loads that, are you tempted to take on loads or accept loads that you normally wouldn't? Things like lithium ion batteries. You're in another episode coming up, you're going to be talking to Craig Leinauer, and he's going to be talking about commodities like that. Are you taking on electronic equipment that's susceptible to theft? Are you taking on machinery that really can't be repaired, or the warranty is going to be voided if any kind of damage happens? You sign the contracts on those loads. What do those contracts look like? Are these contracts that normally in a good freight economy you would push back on a little bit, or you'd redline some of the wording, or you're just taking on what they put on your desk because you're stretched and you need to make sure you're keeping loaded, right? So, and if you're a warehouser, are you taking in commodities, that you normally wouldn't take in, or you're not equipped to take in? So if you take in something like cooking oil is highly flammable. So if you have rows and rows and rows of cooking oil in your warehouse, here at Travelers, we have a risk control specialist that would likely be able to evaluate if you have the right facility or the system. That's a class 4 fire risk. A class 4 fire can burn through metal. Water can actually make the fire worse rather than putting it out. You need special fire extinguishers for that. Sometimes you need walled off rooms to contain the fire. So you could be taking something on that seems harmless on its surface, but it actually is a big fire risk. And are you aware of that?
Wow, so seed oils, if their PR wasn't bad enough, we got cooking oils. Who knew? You also mentioned contracts. Usually when you're getting a commodity like this, there's some contract that goes out. Let's talk about your risk profile and how the contracts can affect that, especially in this economy where you might be more apt to maybe bring on commodities you're not used to.
Yeah, the contracts that you sign are critical for your risk profile. So especially, as a freight broker, but the more you sign on for, the more liable you're going to be. The more liability you accept, the higher risk you're taking. So are you insured for that risk? In a down economy, we see people tend to sign contracts that they might normally redline or push back on. And that can be really dangerous, especially when you're not used to doing this. You're not used to taking on that additional risk. So if someone puts a contract in front of you and you accept it, that could put you in a scenario risk. So you've got to have good review of your contracts. And this is particularly important in that freight broker space. In a freight broker scenario, are you taking on the risk of a trucker? Are you agreeing to be liable as a carrier? That's a lot of additional liability, and it's something that freight brokers usually want to avoid in a better transportation economy. So, a tougher transportation economy, it's important to keep the business flowing, but if you take on too much liability, that can be a real problem for you.
So what's a freight broker, a carrier, or a warehouse operator supposed to do to get a handle on all this?
make sure you have a conversation with your agent, about all these things, and that you're discussing, does your policy have the right coverages for the risk that you're taking on? Is it going to pick up the liability that you're picking up in the contracts that you're signing? You want to balance that profit of the load. If you haul freights of all kinds and dry goods, and then say you take on 3% pharma ingredients, 3% is not much. But if the customers want to give you more and you're trying to stay loaded, so you're going to start taking on more, you really have to, take on or consider that rate. Is the rate good for the risk that you're taking on? Do you need to increase your limits? What will the cost be for that? If you're hauling high target electronics, that are high target for theft, and you're hauling them in one of the highest cargo theft areas in the country to one of the highest cargo theft areas in the country, and the cost of insurance for those two loads that you didn't normally haul or you wouldn't normally haul is so high that the margins are so small, is it even worth the risk? So you have to consider all that.
Got it. So you got to make sure, you got to check your insurance coverages. You got to make sure that, that ties so back into the story. Like you mentioned, for example, electronics, number one stolen thing, Ontario. Say you're going to Ontario, Canada, Toronto area, 93% of cargo theft. Your risk profile, so we're talking about your risk profile's gone up a bit. Now you got to know the insurance, but failing the insurance or having the insurance, what else?
Do you have a good risk control person on staff, or a safety manager? Do you have good process and procedures in place? The risk managers who oversee things, do you have legal counsel on staff that gives you good advice on how those contracts are worded and what liability you're pulling in when you're taking on those new contracts? Do you have a risk department? Ideally, you have a combination of risk control and legal safety managers that are going to give you the best advice and put you in the best scenario. If you don't, are you partnered with an insurance company that can provide some of those services? Are you partnered with somebody that has a dedicated risk control team like we do that specializes in transportation and can help you examine those risks and really have a clear view of what you're taking on? If you're talking about theft, you and I have talked about theft numerous times. We have our special investigations group, and that team works to recover cargo, but they can also work with our clients to evaluate the risk that you're taking on theft-wise and help you put good process and procedures in place. Do you have good training for your staff on the risk that you're taking on? Driver safety, proper loading of the cargo, proper cargo theft prevention through something like our SIG team. Are you partnered with somebody that can help you build all those things, put all those things together if you don't have them internally?